Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres, and you can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so I have Susan Hunt Stevens on the line, and she's founder and CEO over at WeSpire. Susan, welcome to the show.
Adam, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me today.
All right, so I'm excited about today's topic. So this is going to be fun. So using behavior change technology to improve social, environmental, and business outcomes. I think it's a great topic, and we'll go into that. But before we do, let's go a little bit further into what you're doing over at WeSpire. Tell us a little bit more about your company, please.
WeSpire is a technology firm based in Boston, Massachusetts, and we help primarily large global companies engage their employees in their purpose initiatives. Most companies will hit on sustainability, social impact, things like volunteering and giving, holistic well-being, everything from financial well-being to mental health and physical well-being, and inclusive culture, how we treat each other and how we create a culture of belonging and high performance as a result.
So I want to go a little bit further into what's unique about WeSpire and what's the unique value proposition there, because I see it, by the way, but I still see that I feel that, some of the industry, especially some of the larger companies, are still a little bit behind the ball or behind the curve, so to speak, on these types of initiatives. They may still be used to, spending on a specific type of training, but when they look at something like this, they're like, well, what's the exact, why exactly are we doing this? So just give us a little bit more about the value proposition and what you've noticed working with your clients.
Sure. Well, we got started 10 years ago, and if you had told me then that we'd be working with the kind of companies to inspire positive behavior change in their employees, I would have said no way. But I think what's happened is really a set of trends. I think the first is that employees increasingly are vocal and care about ensuring their company is a force for good in this world. The second thing is that investors are recognizing that companies with strong environmental and social and governance, ESG criteria, perform better. And so for a whole wide range of reasons, the investor community is not only putting a ton of money into ESG funds, they're really holding companies much more accountable for their ESG performance. And so when a company suddenly decides that they want to, hit these challenging goals, whether that's net zero carbon emissions or a 50-50 leadership team from a gender standpoint or improving racial equity, they have to get their employees involved. And that gets to the normal way of doing things is to put and post pictures and letters and little campaigns on websites. And the truth is that doesn't work. And adults particularly just do not learn by just reading things. We learn by taking action. And what has happened in technology that's really cool is you see things like social mechanics and game mechanics and personalization and nudges and triggers being used in all these other fields. And we brought them in to see if, in fact, could they nudge us to be more inclusive to each other? Could they nudge us to be healthier? Could they nudge us to save energy, waste, and water? And the answer is it works. It works really, really well. And so now we're really changing the conversation from how do we build awareness of the employees around these things to how do we get them doing this? Because when we do, it drives business outcomes. Not only does it help us hit our ESG targets, we've been able to prove to companies that this is improving their employees' likelihood to recommend the company, their likelihood to retain at the company, and performance. And I think to prove that these things that I for so long felt like the right thing to do, but maybe a distraction from the core business, to say, no, this actually is the core business, is a really exciting place to be.
That is exciting, and I wanted to hear it from your mouth, because I kind of know some of these things, but I don't work in that day in and day out, so I don't have the proof behind it. But you're doing it and you see it, so I think it's amazing what you're doing. Number one, because I think we all benefit from these initiatives, and I want to go a little bit further, on the line of the problems you're looking to solve. So you already mentioned a couple of them high level. Let's kind of drill further there in the problems that WeSpire is solving for these companies.
So it's twofold. First, every company at this point in time is being pressured, whether, it's Larry Fink from BlackRock saying they're going to look at purpose in addition to profit when they're making investment decisions, to Jamie Dimon from the Business Roundtable saying businesses need to be aligned around purpose and profit. It's easy to say that. What do you do? So the first thing is most companies are stepping back and setting 2025, 2030 environmental, social, and governance goals. That's great. But once you do, now you need to figure out what is it that we need our employees to do differently in order to hit those goals. It may be changing the way that in a hospitality company you clean the rooms to save energy, waste, and water. Or it may be encouraging employees to better manage stress and anxiety in order to be more present and be more engaged at work. Or it may be getting people to volunteer and give, because not only is that good for the community, but we've been able to demonstrate that employees who volunteer with each other are significantly more likely to be at the company a year or two later. And so getting people to do these things is really our specialty. What the company wants them to do is really, really dictated by their strategy and their challenges. A company that is in a, customer-facing business with a lot of employee customer interaction may be most focused on making sure their employee is really able to advocate and share the story of what they're doing to be a purpose-driven business. A company that's more B2B might be getting, RFPs where they have to explain why their environmental, social, and governance strategy is the reason they should win a contract and compete against their competitors, not only on the business value of the core product, but also how they do the core product. And so every company is different. And the result is that we've got, 400 behavioral programs in our library. And companies can take and edit and customize them and, really benefit from all of the wisdom that our clients have created and agreed to share with each other. But we also find that they need to use our tools to develop custom programs to be able to get their employees doing the things that are very specific to them, like how they may be saving compressed air in a factory, or how they may be wanting to drive innovation challenges around sustainability and problems that they have with their products or their packaging or things like that. So every client has its own unique fingerprint.
So you've used the word behavior quite a few times in this interview so far. How does behavior design or behavior change, however you want to word this, fit into WeSpire's mission and purpose?
It's really at the core what we do. And, it sounds audacious to say we built a technology that changes human behavior for the better, but we did.
That's awesome.
It's great.
We built a technology to change human behavior for the better. I feel like that's just your slogan. I love it.
It is working. You have to be careful what you apply it towards. Of course, it's a powerful technology, but we really benefited from some great work that's happening in the behavior change and design community, which really a relatively new community. One of the things that I don't always love to admit, but I wrote one of the very first white papers on behavioral advertising in the internet back in 1998 when I worked for New York Times Digital. And that's how young this field is of digital behavior change. And so BJ Fogg, who's at the Stanford Persuasive Technology Lab, has been really instrumental. And that's the model that we really use, which is really stepping back and saying, how do we increase people's ability to do something? How do we increase their motivation to do something? And then how do we put nudges and triggers at the right place and the right time to get them to do it? And then how do we leverage that excitement and enthusiasm people get when they do something they're proud of to encourage and motivate and inspire others in their networks? And so, if it weren't for apps like Strava and Runkeeper, even Weight Watchers Online and Farmville and things like that, we would not be doing what we do, but we were able to be part of this emerging community of people who design for positive behavior change and leverage, the earliest tests and interventions. And then we started 10 years ago testing and intervening ourselves and seeing what worked and seeing what didn't work. And trust me, often things don't work in this field, and learned. But at this point, we've really, hit a stride of, I feel pretty comfortable if any company came to us and said, this is what we want our employees to do, here's why, we could figure out using, campaigns, competitions, events, idea challenges, how to get them to do it.
Can you give an example of, it could be to use the nudges, the triggers, all these other things, just for those that are listening that maybe aren't quite as familiar with how the behavior side of these things work. Can you give an example of, it could be one of your clients, or it could just be in general an example of how it works, of how something like this can be designed so that to affect positive change?
Sure. So first, if you take a topic, what you might call in behavior change language a pathway, a set of behaviors that are needed to get a person from not doing something to doing something in a domain. So let's take something like, being more sustainable in an office. First, you have to figure out and help somebody understand what are the things you could actually do to be more sustainable in an office. Some of them are no-brainers, like turning the lights off when you leave the office if there's not automated lighting. But then there's people who have never realized that leaving your cell phone charger plugged into the wall, if you had little red ions in it, you'd have a pool at the base of every single one if you don't unplug it. And, we can't see that. It's invisible. So it's helping people understand what the activities are. We then get them to try it, to do it once, do it for a week, things like that. And they share that they did, and they story tell around it, and they earn points, and that points help them earn achievements in a category. So there could be an achievement of Green Office Superstar, for example. And so as they take these actions and as they get these points, they're getting positive feedback from their peers and managers. So you're getting likes and thumbs ups and comments and storytelling. You can see what others are doing to be inspired by. And then some of our companies will attach rewards to the achievements, and others will do a whole entire recognition program for that property or that division or that team that had the biggest impact. And then as this is happening collectively and people are doing this, if I'm connected to you, I'm going to get nudged, and it'll be like, oh, Susan just committed to unplug cell phone chargers when not in use. And then I'm sitting there going, oh, well, that's a good idea. Maybe I should do that. So if any of you are on Facebook, which I'm sure many of your listeners are on, or Instagram or things like that, it's a lot of the familiar techniques you're used to. It's not telling you that this person just posted and commented on this friend's, story that was about their kids and what they dressed in Halloween. It's showing the story of this person and what they did to green their office and to take the steps to, unplug chargers and change their laptop energy settings and, remove that refrigerator that's sucking all the energy that you didn't realize it was. And so it's a combination of, again, learning, helping people understand what to do, and then the motivation to get them to do it. And then, at the times and places when you're most likely to not be doing something, to nudge them and remind them to do it. So right before lunch, motivate people to choose plant-based foods because that will reduce their carbon footprint, things like that.
That's awesome. So Susan, that being said, if somebody is listening to this right now and they want to learn more about WeSpire and your work and to follow along with the mission and purpose, what's the best way for them to do that?
WeSpire.com is where you can find all sorts of success stories and case studies and more about each of the different modules and programs that we support. And you're always welcome to contact me. I'm Susan at WeSpire.com.
Perfect. Well, Susan, it's been awesome having you on the show today. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing more about the great work you're doing over at WeSpire. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. If you are a first-time listener, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'd like you to be a return listener. We have lots of more great guests coming up for you. Love for you to join us on this journey. And if you're watching on the YouTube channel, of course, hit the subscribe button. But more importantly, leave us some comments on that video. Love to know what kind of projects and things you're working on to continue the conversation over in the YouTube community over at Mission Matters Business. And Susan, thanks again for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much, Adam. Great to be here.